All right, welcome to the show today. Closers are losers. I didn't even put the logo in the background because I've been so freaking busy, along with Matt, our CEO, co-host. If you're brand new to our podcast, Matt is the CEO of Seventh Level. I'm the chairman, and we're a company that helps sales professionals like you, coaches, executives, business owners, and we help you transform the way you sell with you and your teams by learning how to use human behavior in your sales process. Learning how to use specific skilled questions. We call these NEPQ questions. You're going to hear a lot about that in our podcast and our training. Teach you to have the right tonality that puts your prospects at ease, eliminate sales pressure, what a novel thought, and get your prospects to persuade themselves. Matt, how are you down under over there?
Very good. Very, very busy.
I know we're all busy, man. We're all busy. You and me both. All right.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
I wanted to go over this with you. You know, a lot of times, because I see, when we train companies and we train salespeople, one of the biggest things that frustrates me, besides just lack of just salespeople knowing what to do, because they weren't trained right. It's not their fault. They just didn't get the right training. Is so many salespeople waste so much precious selling time with prospects who can't even get funding or money for what they're offering. And it doesn't matter if that's in B2B, more complex selling environment, and they're talking to companies and business owners. Doesn't matter if it's B2C and coaching or financial services or insurance or cars or just real estate, doesn't really matter. So many prospects waste so much valuable time. It's not just their time. It's your valuable selling time. So if you want to be a top salesperson, you first have to learn how to financially qualify somebody if you get a hint. Now, depending on the industry, it's a little bit different. But in most industries, if you get the hint, you get on the beginning of the call and they say, I'm completely broke. Is this going to cost me any money? Or I just filed bankruptcy and I'm getting kicked out of my house in 2 days. Or my car just got repoed. If they're telling you like weird signals at the beginning, you have to financially qualify them in that first 3, 4, 5 minutes. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. And I think definitely like industry dependent, right? And then price dependent. There are a lot of variables. And I think also how busy the salesperson is a variable as well. I think if you're a guy who's been in the trenches for a while doing your thing and you're busy and you're successful, I think financially qualify really hard because your selling time is really valuable. If you're brand new and there's not much opportunity, sure, maybe take away some of those metrics because practice is good, right? So it's one of those fine lines. It's like, it's a difficult one to because practice is still practice. And sometimes selling broke people is great practice, but you've got to be really careful that when you are effective at sales and when you are good, you need to be, and you're busy and you have opportunity, you need to be quite protective over the people that you take through to the end because you want to maximize your selling opportunities. And you can't do that if you're intentionally putting through broke people. But I think the key thing is they're intentional. It's everything you do in sales when it comes to there has to be intent behind it. If there's no opportunity, and I tell this all the time, and you might actually disagree, if there's no opportunity, I say just let them through. Just fill up your diary with as much stuff as humanly possible and then hope for the best because then you get the most amount of sales. But if it's not there, you have to be very careful.
It's true. And it depends on the industry. Like if you're in a B2B selling environment and you're selling to Fortune 500 companies, even though they say they might not have the budget, it doesn't mean because of your questioning ability that you can't take them through and help them see that they have 2 or 3 or 4 other problems that they didn't realize they had. And the budget they thought they needed, you help them realize it's not going to be enough to solve all these new problems you've helped them find through your questioning ability. And that triggers them to go to other departments to pull funds from those other departments to fund that. Case, for example, one of our first B2B clients, as you know, Google AdWords a couple of years ago, this was 2.5 years ago when we started, said when I first met with them, we don't have the budget for this for another 8 months because of they were like, it's the end of the year. We don't make budgets. It was like all this complicated stuff that I didn't know what the hell was going on. But basically, I helped them find enough problems by my questions that I had with 3 or 4 that are decision makers in those departments to make them realize that if they didn't get the funding from somewhere else, they were going to lose XYZ amount of dollars every single day until they fixed this problem with our sales training. Okay. So they went and pulled that money, it was like 80 or 90 grand. So I'm like, how does Google not have 80 or 90 grand? They can just that's like 8 cents for us, right? That's like a penny. I don't even know. And they pulled it from another department to fund it a couple weeks later, rather than waiting 6 to 7 months later when they came out with their new budget for the next year, blah, 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 blah. Now, if I had not known what questions to ask to get them to realize they had way more problems than they thought when they originally met with me, that sale probably would have never happened. That's the power behind asking the right questions at the right time to get your prospect to realize that maybe the budget they thought they needed is not going to be enough to actually solve all these other problems you've helped them discover.
Exactly. And what were some of the key questions that you would ask in that situation?
With the Google, I'd have to go back. That was a long time ago, but I remember being very intimidated, right? So this is my first B2B client that I've ever met, after we started 7th level, and it happens to be Google. I mean, could I've not started with like mom and pop, shop on the corner that sells widgets and they're doing $100,000 a year in sales? Could I've not met with them? So, no, we have to start at the very top. So it's very intimidating. So I went into their offices down in Tempe, Arizona, and they've got like 4 divisions there. I mean, they're all over. They've got like 50 gazillion divisions, and they're in the Philippines and Poland and Ireland and San Francisco. And they're everywhere basically. So you go into this huge glass building. It's like the 2 top floors of this biggest building in Phoenix. And, I come in there and I'm meeting with people that are younger than me. This is a couple of years ago. So I think I just turned 40 or whatever at that point. And I'm meeting with probably about 2 25 to 26-year-olds who had just graduated from Harvard or somewhere, or Princeton or something, with MBAs, who'd never sold anything, who somehow made decisions for all their sales training, but had never been in sales themselves. And basically it was an interesting conversation because basically I had to, first of all, they didn't understand really what selling was. So I came in there and I said, okay, so walk me through, this is one of the questions, walk me through, if I'm a salesperson and I come to work for Google in these divisions the first day, what does my sales training look like? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, what does my sales training look like? Let's say if I'm a salesperson for you on my first day, like what type of sales training am I learning? Oh, yeah. So we bring you into our product room and we teach you about XYZ product and kind of what it does and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Well, what would be my sales training like the next day and the next week? Like, oh, no. It's just a week and we teach you about all the products and services. I'm like, okay. And that made me realize they view sales training as features and benefits of the product. They view sales training as product-based training, right? So I started to ask them, I can't remember other questions, but that gave me a sense like, okay, they view sales training much differently than we view sales training. So I knew I was going to battle against that, okay? So I just kept asking questions about what their salespeople said was going on and how they struggled. And then they asked me to listen to some of their calls and I gave them feedback. And I said, you could do this and you could do that. And it basically triggered them to view that, hey, our sales training that we have is not really sales training. Now, I didn't tell them, hey, your sales training is really just product training. I got them to tell basically themselves. So, well, I can't remember what I said, but I think I said something like, can I make a suggestion to you or something? And then I asked them, I was like, have you ever considered that talking about the features and benefits, since human beings make decisions on emotion and not logic, like if your salespeople are just talking about logical things instead of pulling out any emotions, that might be triggering a lot of your prospects to really not use your services that probably need the services, something like that. And it got them to think, okay, here I am, this guy who dropped out of college his senior year, although I did know a lot about behavioral science and psychology. I dropped out my senior year and I'm talking to people that are 10 years younger than me who just graduated with their MBAs and I don't know what, maybe they had a PhD and who knows what, it wasn't anything in sales. So it's getting your prospects to view and think about problems they never considered when you first started talking to them.
Yeah, for sure. I did a podcast with Ryan. I was on Ryan Serhant's podcast yesterday. And I talked to him about, do you have a different process when you're talking to, because he recently sold a house for 133 million.
Yeah.
And I was like, when you're talking to a billionaire, do you have a different sales process? And he said, I really want to say I don't, but I definitely do.
What did he say?
It was very interesting. He just said like, it's just a different conversation because really successful people like that, they do not think about things, they just act. And money is no longer a resource, it's now a tool. And so they look at things totally differently. He was like, he doesn't think there's a difference between a $1 million buyer and a $10 million buyer, but a $133 million buyer, like that person, they just look at things differently.
Yeah.
And so like, it was interesting because it was like the sales process isn't different, but the questions are different and it's a much easier sale because they just look at money as a tool. They have so much of it. It's just like, it's taking a drop of water, out of a giant vat so you can drink it. Like, it's just, oh, I need this, so I'll do this. I want to get what I want. And I have a bunch of tools to do that. Sure. It was very, very interesting. So, but I think he said at the beginning when he was talking to these hyper successful people, it was a very intimidating process. But once you kind of get used to it and you kind of learn how to learn the lingo, it kind of becomes a bit more normal. But yeah, I can imagine like your first B2B sales call with Google.
Well, this is before I knew you, before you were part of the company or anything. I was just a little guy by myself trying to figure it out, right? Trying to figure out.
Just a humble man with humble means.
Just a humble man with the humble means, talking with Google. And, it didn't happen the first conversation. I think it was basically 3 meetings over like a 2.5 week period where they had me come into their office. Basically, I actually flew back there 3 freaking times. It's okay. And basically helped them close themselves. And then a couple weeks later, they had me come out. This is before our virtual training platform or anything, and basically do about 4 days of training. And in the first 90 days, we got them a 244% uplift. In the corporate world, that's what they use, not an increase. They use uplift. I'm like, what do you mean by uplift? They're like, yeah, you got to see, we went through the records. We did accounting, like we did an audit for like the last quarter. This was like 5 months later. And we did it 4 times because we didn't believe the numbers, but we got a 244% uplift. I'm like, and I remember saying, I'm like, what do you mean by uplift? Because I didn't know what it meant. And they're like, an increase in sales. I'm like, oh, I'm like, is that all? I remember that's what I said because I thought they were going to get higher. I was like, is that all you got? And they're like, are you kidding me? This is crazy. We've never got more than like a 5 or 10% increase in sales from other companies. And that's when I knew, I'm like, okay, well, maybe this does work.
And they were selling Google AdWords, is that right?
Well, they were selling, so the divisions I trained was one division that it was inbound Google AdWords, like people who had responded to an ad who'd never signed up for Google AdWords, and they would sell them into signing up. It was also Google outbound, where people had AdWord accounts in the past, but they just weren't using them. So they would call them to try to convince them to start putting money into ads. And then was also another division, which was their like account management division. So they were trying to upsell accounts that they already had. And then the last division was a new one called home services. And they were basically like 0%, like they sucked. And it was all cold calling to contractors, like plumbers, trying to get them like a new service where Google would actually do their ads for them to get them local clients in their area. And they paid a fee for that, which they were cold calling like plumbers and electricians. And they thought because they would say, hi, my name is John. I'm with Google AdWords. And the reason why I called you, like for some reason that these plumbers or electricians would just hear their phone call and just want to buy, but nothing could be further from the truth. They thought they could just use Google and just everybody would buy, but they didn't realize that humans don't act that way.
Yeah, it's really like the whole just come from a space of authority, and then it will just come. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess
everybody knows who Google is.
Exactly. Yeah. So going back to the financial qualifiers, I guess like, you said you want to do it in the first 3 to 6 minutes or something like that.
If you get a hint.
If you get a hint. Okay. So let's just say you're in that kind of connection phase. Somebody says, oh yeah, it's been tough. I have my car repoed and, gone bankrupt. There's a bunch of bad things, right? My Dodge Charger has been repoed. Here we go.
Yes.
Right.
My trailer, they just removed it from the yard. Yes.
Exactly. So, okay. So where do you go from there?
So it depends on what you sell. Let's say if you're selling life insurance policies and it's a final expense policy and it's $60 a month, you don't necessarily have to qualify that person. But let's say if you're selling, for example, we train a lot of companies that sell like real estate education, and they sell that to people who like want to become full-time investors. They want to leave their job. They want to make more money. They want to learn how to invest in real estate, right? Those are the problems they solve. And let's say that your training program that you sell for costs $10,000 or $5,000 or 15 grand or whatever it is. And they say what you just said, I'm having a tough time living paycheck to paycheck. You know, my wife's car just got repoed because we couldn't keep up in the payments. Now, when you hear that, that should be in your mind like bing, bing, like red, like the buttons going off. You're like, I don't want to waste this person's time because I can't help them or my time in the next 35 minutes if their car just got repoed. That's a $400 monthly payment. Okay. So I'm just going to immediately stop them and I'm going to say, okay, so first and foremost, John, I want to make sure that I could actually help you because I'm assuming that you understand when you start your own real estate business, you get into investing, it's going to require capital or credit to put into the right training to learn so that you can actually make money. Now, with your situation from what you just told me, what type of funding or credit do you have to put into your business to actually make money? That's how you structure that. You wouldn't want to say, well, how much money do you have? Because then they're like, what, you know, even if they have money, they're like, what are you talking about? I don't even know you, right? But if I do it like that in a way where it makes sense, and I'm talking about funding they need for the business and blah, 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 then ask them, with your situation, what type of funding or credit do you have to put into your business to make money? Now, let's say if they come back and they say, oh man, I've got no money. Like I don't have anything. You just say this because you never know. Like I've literally asked that qualifying question when I was in my sales career and somebody be like, oh, well, yeah, you know, we got in a car accident and I have an insurance check coming in like a week of like 300 grand, you know, just craziness. You just never know.
You get that. Yeah.
You get that sometimes. So you don't want to just disqualify them, like, get out of here. Right. So then I'll say, they're like, oh man, I just don't have any money. I don't know what to do. Okay. Yeah. Because with this business, you're going to need to put in around $10,000 or so when you start to get the right training to make sure you're actually making money in your business. Is that something you can come up with if it fits into what you're looking for? Now, let's say they're like, oh yeah, I could come up with that. Okay. Well, what's your time frame on getting your funding to start? 7 months, they say. Okay. Well, you have to get back to it. I can't help you. Right. So, because you never know if they say that. Some people are like, oh yeah, I can come up with that. Okay. Well, what avenues do you have for funding?
Well, I think I saw a call recording of you years ago and you sort of went through a few of the leads like that.
Yeah. Well, let's say if they come back and they say, well, you know, I can work and, you know, over the next 6, 7, 8 months, I could save up that money. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, without the funding now, there's really nothing I can do for you. Get back to me at that point and I can see if I can help. Now, if they're a little bit more savvier, I might go with some other avenues that other members use to find funding to get into the business and ask them what of those avenues they have. But typically, let's say if they come back and they say, oh, you know, I've got $5,000 to $10,000. You don't want to just not even say anything like, oh, okay. And then just go to the next question. You want to acknowledge that. And you want to say, okay, yeah, I mean, with this, you still ask the same question. Yeah. Okay. Because with this business, you are going to need to put in around that amount or so to get the right training to be able to start making profits. Is that something you can come up with though, if it fits into what you're looking for? I still ask that question, even though they say they have the money, and that just commits them like, I can come up with it.
It's a hard question to ask, right? Though, would you agree?
You have to use the right tonality and the right delivery of that.
I feel like that's like, it's like, I feel like if the people listening here are not trained and they ask that question, they're going to screw it up.
Oh, they'll bomb. They'll be like, with your situation, how much money do you have to start a business? That's what they'll say. They miss everything else that sets that question up.
So you got to there's ninja tactic, you know, like the way that you teach how to close, right? Or how to, finalize the sale is a very ninja tactic. It scares a lot of people because would that be appropriate or how would you like to proceed? Because there's so many doors open. People who don't know where every door leads are in a bit of trouble. Yeah.
Right. So we know every door and what they could say or whatever. But most of the time, we're like, that would be appropriate.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds great. But that's why I think people teach the double bind, right? Which is would you like to do a payment plan or paid in full payment plan? Okay. 3 or 6 months, 6 months. Yeah. The option close. I see, I don't think it's good, but I also see for a beginner, I can see why they teach it because it just closes a bunch of doors. Now from there, it's a farcical land of believing that that's going to have someone make the sale because you've put them into these boxes. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
on the
because it
face of
typically
but-
triggers sales resistance, especially in sophisticated buyers.
Yeah. But I can see why it would make a salesperson more comfortable. And that's what a lot of sales training is. A lot of sales training is like sales trainers doing things that make themselves feel like they're more in control of a situation. And that's kind of what I've realized over the last little bit, especially working with you, is like, oh, like doing an agenda. The only reason why you'd ever do an agenda at the beginning of a call is to make yourself feel like you're in control. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
The only reason why you would no offer somebody is because you don't feel confident you can handle their objection, or you haven't done things properly. So it makes you feel better. The only reason why you would, there's so many things that you can do, like the option close. It's just to make you feel like you're in control of somebody else that has complete agency over every decision they make, and you are not in control of them in the slightest. And to think anything else is, in my opinion, absurd. And also it becomes quite damaging. Like when I tell people like, oh no, it's okay to have someone say no. Like, you just do your process, and the better you get, the more likelihood that person is of saying yes, like just like statistically. But if your number is 20%, right? And that's your number right now. And if everybody out there listening, if your number is 20%, you can get way better than that. But if that's your number and you close 2 out of 10 that week, that was a good week. That's your number. And then you get better and you get it to 30%. And then the next week you close 3 out of 10, and that's a good number. Now, if you're a guy who closes 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 and you have a 2 out of 10 week, that's a shit week, right?
Yeah, no, exactly.
But like, you've got to kind of work within, you got to work within your means, essentially.
Well, I think a lot of sales trainers train that because number one, that's how they were trained. So you don't know what you don't know, right? They don't understand human behavior like we would. They don't understand psychology and why people make decisions and why they don't. They're just like option close, and some people say yes, some people no. So it must work. It's like golf. Like, I hit a really couple of good holes in the 18 holes, but the rest of the holes I suck. So I keep hitting the ball the same way, thinking that I'm okay. It's the same thing. And what salespeople don't realize is the option close and these little type of things that they've been taught. It might make you feel safe, like you have control, but you, like Matt said, you don't have any control, because especially if you trigger sales resistance. Let's say if you're in a B2B complex selling environment and you ask a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, so do you want to do a payment plan or do you want to pay in full? Do you want it delivered on Monday at 2 or Wednesday at 3? Before they've even asked them if they feel like it's what they're looking for, you know what they're going to do? I'm not sure if I feel comfortable with that. Why don't you leave me some information and I'll have Cindy reach out to you in a couple of months. Bye-bye. You're out.
That's what happens. Bye-bye.
And that's what's going to happen with most prospects, unless you're selling a $5 a year subscription to a magazine. Okay. If you're in anything that's over like $1,000 or anything like that, you have to learn skills that work with human behavior. Hey, James, what's up? Otherwise, you're just going to trigger more and more resistance, and you're going to lose a ton of sales.
Yeah. I've got a hard stop. I do apologize. I got a meeting with a client. So
That's right. I know you got to meet with Ryan right now. All right. So everybody, thanks for being on. Make sure you join our sales group, Sales Revolution. We got a link here, Sales Revolution. We do a lot of training in there. Go live 3 to 4 times a week, a lot of content and training. Hop in there, answer a few questions, see if we can help you, what industry you're in. Matt, thanks. Tell Ryan I said hi. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Now, if you're serious about joining the top 1%, I mean the top 1%, and you want to experience more training content just like this, click the links right over there. Right over there, they're exactly what you need to see next. You see, I release new episodes featuring top salespeople and sales authorities, multiple 6-figure, high 6-figure, even 7-figure earners. And if you're new here, do yourself a favor and smash that subscribe button right below, and join our new Facebook group, Sales Revolution. You see, it's free, and there's a link in the description below just for you. We put it there for you. Finally, I make posts on Facebook and Instagram each and every day with more tips and training. So be sure and follow me and turn on your notifications. So make a comment in the first 7 minutes to any of my latest posts, share this episode, and there's a very real chance that you're gonna win some killer prizes. And here's the thing, don't sit on the sidelines. Don't be like everyone else. Get into the game. Join the sales revolution. Stay active, get involved, learn the right skills, and we will show you how to take your life and income to a level that most only dream about.